Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you tonight to a Canadian-Chilean producer and director of film, Daniel Turres. He's the owner of Pageman Productions. He describes himself as someone who passionately discusses his love for film, embracing both its artistic and business aspects. He has a prolific portfolio. He adeptly balances creative expression and commercial success, leaving a profound impact in the genre, film industry, and beyond. What does that all mean? Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. So what does that all mean?
So I've always been a filmmaker at heart. I went to take it through education and then also pursue it as like a career. And making it, your own as an independent producer, director, my heart fell through to genre filmmaking, which is such a great way to exercise the craft and also work. And it means it's also a marketable film in the end. So genre films continue to be prominent within today's market. So that's where
what are genre films?
Sure. Genre films are most likely, around like horrors, thrillers, sci-fis. Some things have more of the bizarre or strange, opposed to, the other more standard, I guess, films like comedies, action, romance. Genre films fill that little bubble of like your classic cult films to like the most obscure independent films that kind of stretch the boundaries of storytelling. And most times genre films are considered to be micro budget films where they are able to get high concept value without having to put too much money towards the film, but still have like the same impact as a big Hollywood film.
Fascinating. Why did you want to be a filmmaker? Why did you want a career in this business?
Sure. I would have to probably stem back all the way from my childhood. My parents subjected me to a lot of their favorite hits from their era of the 70s and the 80s films. And that's always just been an impact on my life. They told me that these movies weren't just like made for willy-nilly. Like every thought was made, like every shot was very specific. The actors were saying lines from a script. The clothing was decided by someone else. Like the magic of filmmaking was just as impactful as the movie itself. And I just always wanted to be a creator behind the screen to actually make these incredible stories come to life on the screen. So that's just where I come from.
And when did you start doing this professionally?
Sure. Professionally, I'd say I started back as an assistant director in 2017-18. I was working a lot of commercials and music videos during my last bit of education in Toronto. And then I worked my way up to producer probably back in 2020 for my biggest feature, Here for Blood, which is a recent film that is produced. But that's from there. So it's fairly new, but I've gained a lot of experience and insight and major connections within the industry in that short amount of time.
Sorry, what did you say? Here for Blood?
Here for Blood is
Tell us about Here for Blood. Oh my God.
Of course. Well, the poster's right behind me. Here for Blood is my biggest film yet. We produced it during COVID. It's a horror film about a babysitter who fights off a bunch of cultists, but the babysitter also happens to be a wrestler, so it becomes like a over-the-top, blood-spattered popcorn spectacle. It's truly a theater experience, and it just pays homage to the classics of our favorite horror films back in the day, because it's a movie first before it is just a straight-up horror film.
Sorry, this is a babysitter that fights off
a bunch of supernatural cultists. So his girlfriend isn't able to take care of the child at this time, so she asks her rowdy wrestler and boyfriend to come in and fill in, and he doesn't know how to deal with kids, but what he does do well is violence. And when they try to kidnap the child, he has a great time taking them out one by one. So he kind of flips the story on his head. Rather than the invaders being the threat, he becomes the threat against the invaders.
Sounds like Home Alone, but a little bit more horror.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And if Kevin was on like, super muscular or something. There's a lot of elbow drops in the film for sure.
Where'd you film it? Who's the star?
Sure. We filmed this film in the London, Ontario area, southwestern Ontario, including Strathroy and Grand Bend, so outside of the GTA. And the star of the film is Resident Evil's Albert Wesker, known as Sean Roberts, the lead actor. So he was the plays Tom O'Bannon, the rowdy wrestler.
And where was it shown?
So far, right now, it's been on the festival circuit. It premiered at Toronto After Dark. It went to Glasgow, Scotland. And as of this moment, it's about to have its biggest debut yet at the London, England Fright Fest this August. And that's about 3 weeks from now, I think. And it's going to have its biggest screening yet. And then shortly after that, it should be having announcements on where it's going to be for the public release.
And are you going over to London for Fright Fest?
I am, yeah. I'm going there with my producers, some of the lead actors from the film. We're going there to promote the film and have a good time watching with the audience. It really is a movie to watch in theaters. And so far, every time I've seen it in a theater with an audience, the reaction just seems to boistering up to be like even bigger and better every time. Like it's a movie where audiences just shout, yell, and have a great time watching the film. Like it really takes you back to the classics.
I don't know if I could sit watching popcorn, eating popcorn, watching this kind of a film.
I don't think a lot of people can either. Most times you end up seeing it kind of in the air and everything. Like it really is such a ride because as much as it has the horror element, the comedy in it is so personable that you can just feel like you're connected to the characters when they're going through this tremendous torrential night of terror.
Wow, sounds amazing. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back in just 2 minutes. We're chatting tonight with a Canadian Chilean producer and director. His name is Daniel Turres. He's the owner of Pageman Productions. He's just recently issued a film on Here. It's called Here for Blood. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what he's currently working on and some other things about genre filmmaking. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Canadian-Chilean producer and director Daniel Turres. He's the owner of Pageman Productions. He's told us just recently about his film Here for Blood, which is going to go, it has been screened at a bunch of festivals, and he's going off to London, England for Fright Fest, which sounds like it's got to be a fun week in London, England, where it's going to be screened again. You should plug into me, connect in with me from London, and tell me how the premiere goes there. But
I'd love to.
that would be great. But Daniel, tell me, what are you working on now?
Sure. Well, I'm working on the next installment of my genre filmmaking, including this new horror film that's going to be set inside of an actual authentic 18th century abandoned prison. So it's located in southwestern Ontario. I moved down to Chatham, Kent, because they had a great incentive here with a new film commission called Flick, filming locally in Chatham, Kent. Because it's the perfect setting for my next low-budget film called Fresh Meat. And
Fresh Meat.
Fresh
and it's
Meat.
In a 18th century abandoned prison somewhere near Chatham.
It's honestly, I'm actually in my office right now. It's probably a 5-minute drive from here. So it's like it's right in the heart of the city.
Chatham.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the building.
Sure, of course. Well, what you try to look for in a low budget film is kind of find like what is the biggest thing you can get on an economical level for staying within a budget. And I had an opportunity to work with the owners of this prison, actively looking for someone to go film something in there. And I adapted a script to work exactly in that prison. So when I got a chance to walk in it, it's definitely somewhere you don't want to be stuck in overnight. It's a very, very, it's a very foreboding and scary, which is an excellent setting for a feature film, something where we don't actually have to build a set from the ground up. We can actually use every single nook and cranny of this place because it's authentic. And it was still functioning until 2014. So it was that's a little frightening to think of because it looks fairly medieval on the inside. And to think that it was still running, it's jarring.
Was this a provincial prison or a local prison or what?
It's it's called Chatham County Jail. So it was mostly for jailing people toward getting their sentencing in the courthouse. So I don't think they had long-term residents there, but I could be
Sounds
wrong.
like it's pretty medieval, so thank God it wasn't long-term.
still though, like people that were still in there for a while, I could be wrong in that point because I'm actually have a meeting with a historian that's going to take me through there to actually detail the history of what's in it. And there's definitely some things I've heard that are frightening to think about.
And Flick, it sounds kind of innovative and interesting, but I'm not thinking that Chatham Kent would be a place that a lot of films would be filmed in. So this is an interesting incentive program that's been established locally.
You're absolutely right. With most films, predominantly being Toronto and Vancouver, and then just going over into Hamilton in the recent like decade or so. Those seems to be, in Canada wise, the main hub for filmmaking. But with the increase of how much content and films and series are made on like almost practically a weekly basis, uh, production companies are having an overflow of filming within the GTA area, and they're now needing to look for other options for optimizing their budgets and making productions. So Chatham Kent being so close to Detroit, near Windsor, and in between London, which London, Ontario, is my hometown, has a film commission. They wanted to jump in and start letting productions know that we're film ready. We have incredible, unique locations, a lot of resources, and like potential big studio lots that can be used for a multitude of productions to really get off the ground and still make quality stuff, but with a fraction of the cost of being what it would be in the GTA.
And abandoned medieval like prison sounds like an interesting recipe for an interesting horror film. So tell us again, what's the title of the film, and give us a little synopsis
Sure,
of what happens, if you could, without giving us
sure.
any secrets.
Yeah, no worries. The movie's called Fresh Meat, and it's about a bunch of unique influencers who think it would be a great idea to break into an abandoned prison to create some trendy content, but they're unaware that there is a inmate locked beneath the bowels of the prison, and when he's released, he's hungry for fresh meat. So it's a straight up slasher film, classic, young people just getting stuck in a situation, and a slasher picks them off one by one in the most colorful, blood spatter spectacle way. And it's doesn't have to be too I would say complicated. It's really a fun ride of a film that you just want to sit back, have a good time, laugh, enjoy, and then be a part of the story.
When you tell us about the inmate picking off them one by one, you smile. Why do you smile when you think about that?
I guess okay. So aside from like, of course, the morbidness of it, where he's like doing scary things like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers do in Halloween and Friday the 13th, I as a filmmaker am so excited to actually how am I going to achieve this emotional feeling of like fun and terror. I'm so excited on the craft of it, and obviously the ultimate look when it's done. And it's just something I think the challenge is so exciting that I forget sometimes it's going to be a little bit scary.
Sounds like it's going to be a lot scary. And who's going to ever want to go into an abandoned jail? Who would want to go into an abandoned jail anyway? But who's ever going to want to go
Exactly.
to abandoned jail after that?
Exactly.
Does Chatham Kent realize it's going to be a horror film?
Oh, big time. Actually, that's their uh, horror films have a very interesting history within the communities of local places. There's places in the states when they filmed the movie The Blob, or other areas where they filmed The Tremors. The communities and cities like gathered together annually to celebrate those films. And I was fortunate enough when I had a private screening of Here for Blood in this city. The mayor, Darren, he came over to watch that movie, and he was so thrilled and surprised to see Here for Blood. Um, and he approached me saying, "I heard you want to come to our town. I want to give you whatever you need to make your next movie here." Because the difference between my horror movies and maybe the most gratuitous ones is that it's overall still a fun story. You connect with the characters. There's comedy involved, so that alleviates the horrifying bits.
So
And I
it's a
think he
comedy
really
and a horror story?
well, if you think about it, some of the best horror films that we enjoy are a horror film first, but there's humor could play a central role in it. The characters are hilarious and interesting to talk and interesting to follow. It's sometimes if you're not connected to the characters, then you don't really care what's happening, so the horror really becomes too much in the face. Um, if you look back at like films like Fright Night, Lost Boys, a lot of the older ones from like 70s and 80s, the characters were super fun. So when terrible stuff happened, you were in it all the way through.
Can you make money in this film business with this genre of horror?
Exactly. In today's, current market, genre films still have a prominent place within, general audiences demand. Even though existing in a world where you get the biggest, Marvel and superhero films and, action films like Fast and Furious, which costs hundreds of millions of dollars, genre films can range from like 500,000 to 15 million, which is a fraction of the cost of those larger films. And they're holding them up in the theaters to this day, even in the streaming age. They're getting released in theaters. They're making tons off the box office ticket sales before they get sold to streaming. So yeah, genre films are not only a great opportunity as a filmmaker to practice the craft of filmmaking, but at least I know for certain that the film that I'm creating has an immediate market to sell to right away, being that the fan base is demanding constant new genre films, and distributors know that they can really sell the tickets without having to do too much of the marketing costs as they do for like a major blockbuster hit.
When do you start filming?
So Fresh Meats production starts this early fall. We're tentatively looking at the second or third week of September, and we start shooting for about 25 shooting days, with the total being like 34 days with logistics.
And when do you think you're going to be release it?
So we are filming in this fall, and then it will be market ready by February. So we're doing post production directly after for November, December, January, and it should be in its locked position to be marketed at certain festivals, including or markets like the Berlin Market and the Cannes Film Festival. So it should be ready for at least a late or early 2024 or 2025 release.
How does an independent, genre filmmaker like yourself get to the Cannes Film Festival?
Sure. I was invited by a couple of distributors and colleagues who saw my film Here for Blood, and they recommended that I go to the Cannes Film Festival to learn what it took to, sell a film. Because it's one thing to make it, but yeah, the business of it in the end is you want to get it sold and you want to get it to the right people and you want to get it in the right hands to get the right distribution. So a new person to that industry, it was a great insight to be at the festival talking to other colleagues and producers and directors that I'm very good friends with now from learning their past experiences, and then also learning from the sales agents and distributors on like what they're looking for currently. So it's a great way to boost up your independent confidence as well as connections to what to do next. So going into Fresh Meat is a lot different than going into Here for Blood, because at least I know with Fresh Meat, I have an idea like, okay, this is the value that this market's looking for. These are the avenues I can go with. And these are the people that we have an opportunity to, again, do another theatrical hit.
The Canadian government, the Ontario government, also provide tax incentives and grants and things like that. Has that been helpful to you?
Definitely on an independent scale. When you're working in an area outside of the GTA, there are labor tax incentives for the Southwestern Ontario, which can be between 35 to 40% return on budget. So, imagine a $1 million budget, 40% of that is already kind of returned back through your labor costs. Obviously, it has to be Canadian labor costs, and that's a big important part of that part of the industry. And as for grants, I was able to meet a lot of telefilm members at the Cannes, which is interesting because like you try to reach out to them here in Canada and they're so busy, but over there you get to at least have some FaceTime, and they give a lot of insight on how you can achieve uh, film grants for your variety of budgeted films.
And are you financing it all yourself, or do you have investors?
So for our last two films, including this one, they are majority privately financed, with portions of it taken care of through sponsorship and product placements throughout the film. So as of this time, it is privately investors.
It sounds like a fascinating career that you've invented for yourself. What do your parents think?
Oh well, I'll tell you what. My parents are part of the production team. Like they were there on the first film, the other film, and they're all for it. Like my partner in this is my father, Christian Turres, and we work simultaneously, hand in hand, every day, getting the scheduling down, contacting the people, making sure that the right industry members are working their positions. And it's a lot of contracts and deals, a lot of specifics and logistics before you can even get to camera, which, at least they were motivated to make something fun. And that's why it's all worth it in the end.
If I wanted to see Here for Blood, is it playing anywhere? Is it streaming anywhere? Could I see it anywhere?
Uh, right now, it's finishing up its festival tour, and we've been locking down its U.S. Distribution at the moment. I can't say too much of where it's going to be released because we're literally in the midst of taking care of the details. But as soon as that's out, they will send out a big alert to everybody in the world to know where it's going to be. So just around the corner, I would expect something early 2024. There will be a release of it. And hopefully I'll be able to tell you exactly what form of release it will be. But I would just say sit tight. It's coming out.
Now, would this be shown at TIFF?
We've already done our Canadian premiere at Toronto After Dark, which is kind of again, the genre film festival, just as big as TIFF, but on the more bizarre and scarier end of filmmaking.
Toronto After Dark. When's that? I got to go.
It's October. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. When I was there last time, I saw a lot of fantastic films, especially a lot of good Canadian ones and some good international stuff as well.
Unbelievable. So we're going to hear sometime in the future where we might be able to see it in 2024. And you're going to release your new one, Fresh Meat, sometime in 2024 as well. What else are you working on?
Well, as much as I'm working on that film, I'm actually been doing a bit of a partnership with the Film Commission here in Chatham-Kent, utilizing a lot of my connections and insights on my personal experience in the film industry. We want to make sure areas like this are starting to get ready for larger productions to take advantage of what we have available. So at the same time as this film, I'm helping grow a new film commission for Southwestern Ontario to accommodate future productions.
What's your favorite horror flick?
Oof. I'll go with probably the first one I saw that really stuck with me is Silence of the Lambs. I don't know if you know that one with Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, that film was I could still see his face behind the glass, and I remember watching that film and thinking he was always outside my window. It was a frightening film, but truly a masterpiece. When you watch it over and over, those are the films that really inspire you to be like, I want to try to make something as impactful as that.
Is that the one when he's calling out to Clarice?
Hello, Clarice. Do you still hear the lambs, Clarice? Yeah.
Oh God, brings back shivers.
It's amazing.
And hopefully you'll have a similar impact to that. Really appreciate you joining us tonight.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody.